Imagine waking up to find 3 women, 2 young graduates and a devoted mother, vanished into thin air. No evidence of a struggle, no calls for help, just an empty home filled with unsettling clues. This is the haunting reality of the Springfield Three, a case that has mystified investigators and terrified the public since June 1992. Cheryl Levitt, her daughter Suzie Streeter, and Suzie's friend Stacy McCall disappeared on a quiet summer night, leaving behind only questions. What happened that fateful evening? Was it a random crime, a sinister plot, or something more chilling? Let's explore this unresolved mystery that continues to baffle experts and captivate true crime enthusiasts. On the evening of June 6, 1992, Stacy McCall and Suzie Streeter were in high spirits. They had just graduated from Kickapoo High School in Springfield, Missouri, and spent the evening attending several graduation parties with friends. The 2 girls had initially planned to spend the night at a hotel, but changed their plans last minute. Instead, they decided to stay at Suzie's house, where her mother, Cheryl Levitt, lived. Cheryl was a 47-year-old single mother who had recently moved into the modest home on East Delmar Street. Known as a hard-working and loving mother, Cheryl was proud of her daughter's achievements and had been eagerly preparing for Suzie's post-graduation plans. That evening, she stayed home while Suzie and Stacy attended the celebrations. The house was supposed to be a safe haven for the girls to rest after a long day of festivities. But by morning, everything had changed. The disappearance. On the morning of June 7th, friends and family became alarmed when none of the 3 women could be reached. Stacy's mother, Janice McCall, was the first to notice something was wrong. Stacy hadn't returned home as planned, and when Janice couldn't reach her by phone, she decided to drive to Cheryl's house. When Janice arrived at the home, she found all 3 women's cars parked in the driveway. It looked as though they were inside, but no one answered the door. Concerned, Janice entered the house through an unlocked door. What she found inside only deepened the mystery. The house appeared undisturbed at first glance. There were no signs of forced entry or an obvious struggle. Cheryl's bed had been neatly made, and all their personal belongings, including purses, keys, and cigarettes, items none of them would leave behind, were still inside. The television was left on, and there were even half-consumed beverages on the counter, suggesting they had been interrupted suddenly. Adding to the eerie scene, a broken porch light outside the house suggested that someone may have tampered with it or broken it during the night. However, there was no clear evidence pointing to foul play. Despite the unsettling details, the 3 women were gone without a trace. The investigation begins. When police arrived to investigate, they quickly realized they were dealing with an unusual case. The absence of physical evidence made it difficult to determine what had happened. There were no signs of a struggle inside the home, but the broken light fixture on the porch raised suspicions that someone might have staged an ambush. Police speculated that the women had been abducted during the night, but they were unsure whether the perpetrator or perpetrators had targeted them randomly or had specific motives. With no witnesses and no apparent motive, investigators had little to go on. One significant misstep in the investigation occurred early on. Concerned friends and family members had unintentionally contaminated the crime scene before law enforcement arrived. Nearly 20 people had entered the house that morning, moving items and touching surfaces in their search for clues. This made it nearly impossible for investigators to collect uncontaminated forensic evidence, a factor that would later hinder the case. Clues and theories. As news of the disappearance spread, the case gained national attention. Hundreds of tips poured in, but none led to a definitive answer. Over the years, investigators explored several theories about what could have happened to Cheryl, Suzie, and Stacy. The ambush theory. One theory suggests that someone may have been watching the house that night, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. The broken porch light could indicate that the perpetrator tampered with it to lure one of the women outside. Once the assailant gained access to the house, they may have overpowered all 3 women and abducted them. The random killer theory. Some investigators believe the women may have been victims of a random attack by an opportunistic criminal. This theory gained traction when convicted killer Robert Craig Cox was named as a potential suspect. Cox, who was in Springfield at the time of the disappearance, had a history of violence and was known to have connections to the area. In later interviews, Cox made cryptic statements implying he knew what had happened to the Springfield Three but refused to provide details. Despite this, there was never enough evidence to formally charge him. The familiar perpetrator theory. Another possibility is that the women knew their abductor. This theory stems from the lack of forced entry and the fact that Cheryl and Suzie's house was typically kept locked. It's possible the perpetrator was someone they trusted enough to let inside. However, no clear suspect has ever been identified among their acquaintances. Human trafficking or abduction for profit. Some have speculated that the women may have been targeted for human trafficking. While this theory is less substantiated by evidence, it remains a possibility, particularly given the lack of clues pointing to other motives. Connection to Suzie's past. Another avenue of investigation focused on Suzie Streeter's past relationships. Suzie had previously dated a man involved in criminal activity, and there were rumors that she had information about a crime that could implicate him. Investigators considered whether her disappearance might have been an attempt to silence her, but this lead also failed to produce concrete evidence. The aftermath. Despite extensive efforts to solve the case, the disappearance of the Springfield Three remains one of the most perplexing mysteries in American criminal history. Investigators followed hundreds of leads, conducted numerous searches, and interviewed countless individuals, but no solid answers have ever emerged. The case has left a lasting impact on the Springfield community, where fear and speculation still linger. For the families of Cheryl, Suzie, and Stacy, the lack of closure has been devastating. Janice McCall, in particular, has dedicated her life to keeping the case alive, advocating for answers and maintaining hope that one day the truth will be uncovered. In the decades since their disappearance, advancements in technology and forensic science have raised hopes that new evidence might come to light. However, without fresh leads, the mystery remains frozen in time. The legacy of the Springfield Three. The Springfield Three case has become a symbol of unresolved pain and unanswered questions. Over the years, it has been featured in documentaries, podcasts, and true crime shows, drawing attention from across the globe. Yet, no amount of exposure has brought the answers that the families and the community desperately seek. The case has also served as a sobering reminder of how quickly lives can change and how a single moment of vulnerability can lead to unthinkable tragedy. It has left an indelible mark on Springfield, turning a quiet Midwestern town into the site of one of the most haunting disappearances in modern history. The disappearance of Cheryl Levitt, Suzie Streeter, and Stacy McCall, known as the Springfield Three, remains one of the most baffling and haunting mysteries in U.S. history. On June 7, 1992, the three women vanished without a trace from Cheryl's home in Springfield, Missouri. The scene left behind showed no signs of struggle, leaving investigators with more questions than answers. Decades later, their fate remains unknown, casting a shadow over their loved ones and the community. Despite extensive investigations, countless tips, and ongoing public interest, no definitive leads have surfaced. Theories range from an abduction by strangers to a targeted attack, yet the lack of concrete evidence has turned the case into an enduring enigma. Families and advocates continue to hope that advancements in forensic technology or the emergence of a critical clue might one day solve the mystery. The Springfield Three are more than a cold case. They are daughters, mothers, and friends whose lives were stolen, leaving an unfillable void for their families. As the years pass, the determination to find the truth remains unwavering. Their story is a chilling reminder of how fragile life can be. For more mysteries and updates on unsolved cases, subscribe and join the conversation to keep their memory alive.